Hey everybody, it's Dustin Zinger here, Investor Relations for ValOre Metals. Today we have Colin Smith joining us, Head of New Project Review. And we wanted to take today as an opportunity to go over our December 1st press release, where everyone who's not familiar with Pedra Branca, it's located about 400 kilometers away from Fortaleza. Fortaleza, it offers an international port for air by air and sea. Now, this is a picture of the property. As you can see, it's very dry and arid ranch land. This means that it's ideal for exploration. We can work here pretty much year round, and it's mostly used for agricultural purposes. So we actually have very good access to roads and infrastructure for further development. Now, if Colin, could you go over the recent drill program we completed?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dustin. And yeah, just to get everybody orientated with where we are in the project, the location of the 543-101 deposit areas are denoted by these red stars here, the aggregate resource of which is summarized here. For the purposes of this video and the December 1st press release, we'll be focusing on the Trapia 1 drilling. Trapia 1, as you see on the right-hand side, is a part of the global Trapia resource, which is comprised of 3 distinct deposit areas. Historical holes are denoted in white. The 2020 drilling is in yellow, and the 43-101 resource solid is in blue polygons. And in terms of what we drilled in 2020, as you can see it summarized on the left here, a good third of the meterage was dedicated to Trapia 1, all resource expansion. We actually expanded the Trapia 1 program by about 1,000 meters based on the encouraging results that we saw in the first 5 holes.
And can you give us a little explanation as to what those big red blobs are on the right-hand side?
Yeah, absolutely. These are 3D Mag Inversion targets. So they're 2D projections of the 3D isoshell targets or 3D inversion targets that came through the process of 3D inversion modeling, the Mag. And there's a direct affinity between magnetic rocks, host rocks, and mineralized PGE rocks at Pedra Branca. So really they formed a strong and robust targeting backbone really for a lot of our modeling and drill planning for this drill program. As you can see, especially in Trapia 1 and Trapia 2, there's a strong affinity between these isoshells or these 3D inversion targets and the actual resources themselves. And here is a closer up view of Trapia 1. Specifically, again, we're looking at historical holes in white, the holes in question for this release, for the December 1 release in blue, and previously released holes from this year in yellow. And again, you're seeing a view of the isoshell target here and also the location of the cross section, which you'll see on the next slide. In summary, we hit mineralized ultramafic intrusion in all holes in 2020 at Trapia 1. And there are some very significant reinterpretations of the geology and the structure in this area that really changed the game for us and has opened up this resource target in a big way. The other important aspect and takeaway point from 2020 drilling is that we are seeing a thickening of the mineralized system at depth across the entire breadth of the resource area, and also from what we've drilled in the isoshell target to the south outside of the resource. So basically down dip to the east, we're seeing thickening of the mineralization in every single hole we've drilled, as well as the historical holes.
The breakout holes we had are surrounded in that black box. Can you give us a little bit more description around those?
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be best served by the cross section on the next slide. But TU20 in particular was a standout hole for us. You can see the grade interval summaries on the left here. I mean, including a nice high grade run of 4.19 grams per ton over 15 meters. These are true widths. We're hitting this intrusion at basically 90 degrees. We're within 5 degrees of 90. So essentially we're looking at full true widths here. And why don't we just jump to the section and see what it looks like. So the section orientation, as you saw before, is from A to A prime, TU20 being the easternmost down dip hole. And there's significant points to be taken from this slide in the fact that, well, let's start here at TU05. This is a historical drill hole located just on the southern margin of Trapia 1's resource, and it was responsible for cutting off the resource on the southern margin. And as you can see, the historical end of hole is just shy of 70 meters. stopped shy of the mineralization and thus assumed that there's a structure totally obliterating the intrusion at this location. Through the drilling that we did in 2020 and also the pulling and relogging of all of the historical drill holes that you see to the north in the resource area, the interpretation was made that, in fact, in TU05 from 2004 and also in the holes that we had drilled in the south to that at that point, that the entire geological package was actually still there, but that there was a 50-meter down dropping of that intrusion on the southern margin of the resource. So in fact, that gave us the impetus to twin DD04 TU05 and extend it to depth to test that theory. Sure enough, at about 45 meters down hole from the previous end of hole, we entered the mineralized ultramafic intrusion, and that really changed the game for us. It provided a catalyst to plan 8 additional holes or 1,000 more meters, of which we hit mineralization in every hole, full continuity between every single hole we drilled to the south outside of the resource. And again, we're seeing this dramatic thickening of the mineralized package at depth to the east. The impressive interval that we saw at TU20 is summarized in the next couple of slides in core photos. And in particular, let's look at the 15 meters of 4.19 grams per ton. The most important thing to take away from this slide is the consistency of the grades through the interval. It's not like we're seeing a couple samples of 20 grams and then a bunch of 0.2s. We're really seeing a consistent run of 2 PGE plus gold mineralization throughout. We're saying, as I said before, nice base metal credits and gold grades up to over a gram per ton as well. The interval that you're seeing here, don't forget, is within a broader package of over 30 meters at 2.33, and that, of course, is within a broader interval of over 76 meters at 1.25. And just for clarity, these are 2 PGE plus gold grades. It's not an equivalence grade. It's a straight summation of grams per ton palladium plus gram per ton platinum plus gram per ton gold. So it's a very consistent and well-defined interval. Here's just a close-up view of some of the core samples, in particular in the high-grade interval that we just saw. The darker, larger grains or crystals are olivine, and the mineralization is hosted within these fine black dots, which are the chromite crystals. And they're typically intercumulate or interstitial to the olivines, which you nicely see in this peridotitic phase on the right-hand side. And again, great grades, well above 5 and 7, and beautiful looking rock as well. Okay, and there is a couple sections stepping down the strike of the isoshell. Takeaway point here is just the fact that, again, we're seeing this consistent thickening down dip on this mineralized system to the east.
So what can you tell us about the chart or the table you have going on at the bottom there as well? Can you give us a little bit more description around that?
Yeah, sure. It's just kind of a quantitative comparison of the up dip and down dip hole in a section and what the thickness of that mineralized interval looks like in comparison. So for example, the section that we were looking at in the previous slide with TU05, 11, and 20, you can see that from TU11 to TU20, we gained over 42 or almost, well, we more than doubled the interval thickness in that section. And it doesn't matter whether you draw the cross section on the northern margin with TU08 and 14, or central in the historical holes, marginal to the resource, or marching your way down the isoshell. We're seeing this consistent thickening of the mineralization with depth. Okay, so what's next? I mean, it's clear that there's exciting follow-up potential at Trapia 1. We're fully open at depth. We're seeing thickening at depth. We're open to the west up dip along the isoshell. Don't forget, this deposit does come to surface up here. We started the program by twinning a BR hole to bring the resource to surface. It's clipped around this old hole because there's no physical drill core. So it does come to surface in the north, and we're hoping to shallow mineralization to the west in the south. Further to that, the hole spacing in a recent drill program should enable resource recalculation in 2021. We've really only stepped out about 400 meters of this kilometer long isoshell. So there's still well over 600 meters of untested isoshell. Through the process of refining our geological and geophysical targeting models, I think there'll be some excellent holes coming in the new year.